maritime industry is resilient, ever ready, powering on to drive global trade, no matter what happens around the world. Today it is transforming with three key focuses: digitization, decarbonization, and workforce development. To succeed in this transformation, we need governments, industry, workers to work as one.
Shipping and ports work hand in hand, and the pandemic has shown us just how important a seamless global supply chain is. Despite the challenges faced, goods need to keep moving to get to the people who need them. To strengthen the resilience of our supply chains, we need to innovate, adopt digital solutions, and welcome ideas across diverse industries and stakeholders.
Shipping will be shaped by many external factors. We must learn to navigate in an increasingly complex environment. Now, more than ever, we really need to come together to collaborate and harness synergies for technological innovation, for sustainability, and not least for workforce development.
What we deliver can change the world for the better.
What we deliver can change the world for the better indeed. The maritime sector never stops evolving and must welcome ideas across diverse industries and stakeholders. And special thanks to OSM Ship Management, Jurong Port and PSA Corporation for some of the images in the video. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies. Ong Ye Kang, Minister for Transport, Republic of Singapore. Chee Hong Tat, Senior Minister of State for Foreign Affairs and Transport for Singapore. Ngiam Chiang Meng, Chairman of the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the 15th edition of Singapore Maritime Week. My name is Timothy Ngeh, and I'm delighted to be your host today, which is also the first time that we are organizing a hybrid version of SMW. Thank you for joining us. Before we start, let me share that we are concurrently joined by many international attendees on the Singapore Maritime Week's virtual platform at www.smw2021.sg. Apart from networking here on site with the other physical delegates, you can also log on to the platform using the link provided in the confirmation EDM. Connect with virtual delegates via the virtual networking lounge and feel free to post or share your thoughts at our newsfeed page or leave your questions in the chat box on the right panel located in the auditorium page. All questions will be moderated. And in line with ongoing event regulations, all guests, please do remain masked. Guests coming on stage, please do remain masked until you are ready to speak and replace your mask before leaving the stage. And for now, for his opening address for SMW 2021, please welcome on stage Ong Ye Kang, Minister for Transport. Minister, please.
Mr. Ngiam Chiang Meng, Chairman of MPA, friends, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's good to have a physical meeting and conference again. I hope you are all comfortable in your respective zones. We know Singapore has no natural resources. We have, however, one geographical endowment, and that is our location along the Straits of Malacca in Singapore. And the Straits, in turn, straddles archipelagic Southeast Asia, which connects East and West, the Middle East, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and East Asia. Indeed, the Straits provides the genesis for Singapore's 700-year history. And today it is a critical artery for free trade, provides passage to 1/3 of global container trade and about 1/4 of global oil trade. However, this geographical endowment does not promise us endless uncovering of resources to feed us for generations. It is the proverbial fishing rod that enables us to earn a living with our hard work and our wits. Singapore's status as a global maritime hub is therefore by no means a given. Along the straits, there is competition. Outside of the straits, and there are alternatives that can potentially bypass us. Hence the theme of this year's Singapore Maritime Week, New Frontiers, Shifting Paradigms. And the purpose is to help focus our minds to do better, especially in a post-pandemic world where the industry landscape will be reshuffled. I would suggest 4 frontiers, and I'll speak about them today: resilience, digitalization, decarbonization, and finally, talent. So first, resilience. It is a topic that has renewed importance given various upheavals we went through for the past 1 year. Lest the reminder by COVID-19 is not enough, the ever-given incident in the Suez Canal last month created further delays in the global supply chain. The Suez Canal carries 12% of all global seaborne trade, and in comparison, the Straits of Malacca in Singapore carries almost 3 times as much trade. So any disruption along the straits will have an even more severe impact. So to prepare for future disruptions, there have been talks of inshoring to reduce the reliance on foreign supplies, focus more on just in case and less on just in time. I think countries can do this, but probably only at the margins. It is not possible to unwind globalization and the complex supply networks that have been set in place. For example, you know this, Apple relies on a network of manufacturers from almost 50 countries to produce an iPhone. And Pfizer needs 5,000 oversuppliers to manufacture its vaccines. Ensuring the safety and openness of international trade arteries like the Straits of Malacca in Singapore therefore remains a critical task and requires the collective effort of all stakeholder countries. So because of this, the MPA of Singapore will continue to enhance its vessel traffic information system to ensure safety of navigation, including early detection of collision and grounding risks. Singapore is also playing a key and active role in RECAP, the first regional government-to-government initiative to counter piracy and sea robberies in Asia. And we have hosted the RECAP Information Sharing Center since its inception, and we commemorated its 15th anniversary this year. When COVID-19 led to port closures, seafarers were stuck on their work vessels. Singapore worked with our industry stakeholders to devise a tight, robust procedure to ensure that crew change can take place in Singapore safely. And we helped avert a humanitarian crisis, and we managed to keep supply lines open. When the Suez Canal was down, a Dutch company led the rescue operation. Canadian-designed tugboats were deployed by Suez Canal Authority and also a Danish company. Ships from many countries navigated around the Cape of Good Hope instead. So even though the Ever Given has been freed, the downstream impact on shipping will be felt for some time. So ports around the world, including Singapore, have stepped up to manage the arrivals of ships that experience delays and then support their needs. It is an unfortunate disruption, but it also is a very clear demonstration that when something like that happens, many countries harness their resources and resourcefulness to restore supply lines. Resilience of supply lines depends in turn on the resilience of our sea crew. Singapore started our sea-air vaccination exercise for frontline maritime workers in January this year, and to date, 30,000 of our frontline maritime personnel, including seafarers, have received at least their first dose of the vaccine, with 23,000 having received both doses. So if you look at the front line, those with exposure to higher risk, over 95% has been vaccinated already. However, internationally, many seafarers remain unvaccinated. This threatens their well-being, increases the risk of cross-border transmission, and could undermine international shipping operations and global supply chains. Hence, last month, the WHO and other UN agencies, including the IMO, called on governments to prioritize seafarers and aircrew in their national COVID-19 vaccination programs. The IMO is working with the international unions and shipping associations to secure vaccines for a network of seaports that can assist in the vaccination of international sea crew. This is an important effort to strengthen maritime resilience, and Singapore will do our best to support this international effort. Let me move on to the second frontier, which is digitalization. And this is bringing about a broad and profound transformation across every aspect of our lives. In Singapore, we are pressing ahead to implement digital solutions to improve efficiency and turnaround times for vessels. In 2019, we launched the digital portal for one-stop regulatory transactions, or Digital Port at SG, as a single platform for all vessel-related transactions. So we consolidated 16 forms for vessels, for immigration, for port health clearances, across separate platforms into one seamless submission. This saves the industry about 100,000 man-hours per year. And with consistent data, we can also clear vessels a lot more quicker. Today, we will be launching operational trials for the just-in-time platform under Digital Port at SG Phase 2, which will enable ships to turn around faster and marine service providers to manage their resources better. Internationally, we are championing global common standards and interoperability between digital systems of ports and ships. But digitalization is much more than computerizing procedures and going paperless. That is just digitization. We are talking about digitalization, which is also about revamping existing procedures and reimagining our value proposition totally. For example, we can use wireless and portable devices to connect our workforce, for them to work seamlessly, cooperating with one another. We can use sensors to troubleshoot equipment. We can use AI to optimize decision-making and create new products, new value add, new services. As a global transshipment hub, the movement of vessels and their containers in our port are highly complex. So at the heart of PSA is an AI engine, constantly trying to learn, trying to optimize their movements of containers coming through our port. Digital technology is arguably a more significant technological breakthrough than the steamship in terms of its impact on globalization. And we are still at the nascent stage of fully leveraging the potential of digitalization. These are powerful technologies and solutions, not just replacing old ones, but also seeking new problems to solve and new frontiers to break. Let me now move on to the third frontier, which is decarbonization. With the launch of the Singapore Green Plan 2030 as a whole-of-nation effort for climate action, sustainable development and decarbonization has become Singapore's national imperative. Under the Green Plan, we are making Singapore a city in nature, including planting 1 million trees by 2030. We are raising our targets for recycling. As it is, we recycle every drop of water we use. But now we want to also increase recycling for industrial materials. We need to do an energy reset, leveraging more electrical power and transforming our vehicle population to low-emission models. We are beginning to build up our coastal defenses against rising sea levels. Maritime Singapore must contribute to the national and global sustainability agenda. As a major transshipment hub, we are already contributing significantly to carbon emission reduction because using a transshipment hub is the most efficient way to run the global supply network. Let me illustrate. If you have 10 ports in Europe, sending containers to 10 ports in East Asia, you need 10 times 10, or 100 ships making 100 journeys. But if they come through a transshipment port and hub like Singapore, where cargo to each destination port can be consolidated, you will only need 10 plus 10, or 20 ships and 20 journeys, cutting down many trips that are necessary. PSA tries to further reduce vessel idle times through efficient operations. For reducing a day of waiting, lower CO2 emission by about 45 tons. The new Tuas port that we are building will be fully electrified, using electric autonomous guided vehicles, and operate at half the carbon emission intensity of our current ports. But to drive decarbonization, we need collective action. A crucial development is the maritime fuel of the future. And this is an issue of great interest to the IMO and the international shipping community. Zero carbon fuels like ammonia and hydrogen, they are possible, but they are some distance away, in fact, quite a distance away. In the interim, LNG is recognized as a practical and transitional fuel to reduce carbon and sulfur emissions compared to other conventional marine fuels. While the industry continues to work on developing future fuels and vessels, some shipping lines are adopting LNG-fueled ships to make a difference first. To support the shipping industry through this energy transition, Singapore is providing LNG bunkering services. For faster adoption of cleaner fuel, however, I think we need the right price signal to the industry. Hence, a very meaningful international action plan, which Singapore supports, is to introduce an international, non-discriminatory levy on marine fuel consumption and channel the proceeds into research and development for cleaner fuels and maritime decarbonization efforts. Domestically, MPA will launch a public consultation exercise to develop the Maritime Singapore Decarbonization Blueprint 2050 by the end of 2021. The blueprint will outline Singapore's long-term strategies for a sustainable maritime Singapore, and we welcome your views, your feedback, and your suggestions. In addition, the International Advisory Panel on Maritime Decarbonization, which was set up by the Singapore Maritime Foundation last year with MPA's support, will release its report later this week. I would like to express my deepest appreciation to all the members for your time, for your effort, your suggestions, and your wisdom. One proposal by the panel is to establish a global maritime decarbonization center in Singapore, where a cluster of like-minded stakeholders can coordinate, drive, and catalyze maritime decarbonization solutions. I think this is a worthwhile and strategically important initiative. The MPA will follow up to set up this center with the support of industry players who have rallied around this effort. More details will be announced by the MPA. Finally, I would be remiss if I did not mention the last frontier, which is talent attraction and development. Singapore, due to our diverse economic activities, is in a good position, where many sectors are vying for a very limited pool of talent. It also means that choices and options are available for our young, so long as they have picked up the right knowledge and the right skills. In my few months at the Ministry of Transport, I've noticed that amongst sea, air, land, the three sectors that MOT look after, air transport is very attractive to our young. Simply because for young people, they instinctively like traveling and they like aeroplanes. And I thought that land transport would have less pulling power, but I was mistaken. I've come across so many young people who just love trains and buses, and they want to work in the land transport sector in future. And actually, most of them do not have full knowledge, and in fact, I would say many of them have no idea of the professional roles and job types in this sector. They just love planes or they love trains and are willing to jump into the sector and figure out what jobs to take up in future. In this regard, I think the maritime sector can do more to attract the young. Because we are an island surrounded by the ocean, and the sea is a fantastic, fascinatingly complex and large ecosystem, bursting with life and diversity, waiting for curious minds to explore. So my suggestion is to be less focused on selling to our young specific professions and roles in the sector. Instead, get them to love the sea. And I think we have the conditions in Singapore to achieve this. And I believe those who do may one day join the maritime sector. I will conclude by addressing the second half of conference theme today, which is what paradigm shift is needed in order to break frontiers. We know the imperatives at hand, be it strengthening maritime resilience, digitalization, or decarbonization. They are all global in nature. Challenges, they are global in nature, and they require international collaboration. So a collaborative spirit is most needed in this global village of ours to solve our shared problems. And the role of international organizations like the IMO has grown. Regional institutions such as ASEAN, East Asia Summit, or APEC can help build an international consensus on the collective responses to these challenges. So we know the importance of international collaboration, so I don't think it's quite a paradigm shift. But we need to be committed to collaborating with one another, and we need to be driven by our love for the sea and the idea that the oceans are our most important global commons, which hold the common heritage of mankind and connect rather than separate the peoples of different lands. I wish you a fruitful conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Ong. I'd like to invite you to please remain on stage for our official launch ceremony and to join Minister for the launch of the 15th edition of Singapore Maritime Week 2021. Please welcome Maritime and Port Authority Chairman, Mr. Ngiam Chiang Meng, Singapore Maritime Foundation Chairman, Mr. Andreas Somen Pao, Singapore Shipping Association President, Ms. Caroline Young, and Association of Singapore Marine Industries President, Mr. Simon Quick. A gentle reminder to all our VIPs on stage, please keep your masks on. To our guests on stage, on my countdown, please place your right palm on the iPad to officially launch the 15th edition of Singapore Maritime Week 2021. And to the audience who are watching virtually, you get to participate in the launch as well, so listen out for the launch button cue. Are you all ready? On my count, 3, 2, 1.
Three, two,
Virtual audience, click on the launch button now. have officially launched Singapore Maritime Week 2021. Thank you very much, Minister, and all our guests. Please return to your seats. And on such a momentous occasion, we have a congratulatory message from International Maritime Organization Secretary General, Mr. Kitak Lim.
I wish to congratulate you on the successful launch of the Singapore Maritime Week 2021. We are experiencing truly unprecedented times, and it is encouraging that we are able to come together to discuss the future of shipping through new frontiers and shifting paradigms. I'm certain that the maritime community will utilize the opportunities of the post-COVID recovery to pave the way for building a safer, greener, more efficient and sustainable maritime industry. I would also like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Maritime and the Port Authority of Singapore on its 25th anniversary. Since its inception, MPA's support, cooperation and partnership have been a crucial asset toward the progress of IMO's key policies. Our collaborations on major projects over the years have been very productive. In recent years, projects like IMO Singapore Third Country Training Program, the Next Gen concept for a collaborative global ecosystem of maritime decarbonization initiatives, as well as a successful Future of Shipping webinars on decarbonization and digitalizations, which continue to be hosted at the height of pandemic last year, gives me great hope for fruitful collaboration and cooperation in the future. I wish you all the very best success for this week and the future as you deliberate on solutions to advance the maritime industry through the post-COVID-19 environment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lim, for that heartwarming message. In his opening address, Minister Ong mentioned the launch of Digital Port at SG Phase 2, which will include a just-in-time planning and coordinating platform that provides real-time information for port stakeholders to better plan, coordinate, and allocate port resources. So let's take a look at the features of Digital Port at SG Phase 2. Less than 5 years ago, the world was on the cusp of transformation to the fourth industrial revolution, the great digitalization era. And now the great energy transition has taken center stage as we move towards greater reliance on sustainable energy resources. Collectively, both these transformations have a major role in reshaping the face of the global maritime industry. Growing awareness of these transitions has also raised concerns related to environmental, social, governance aspects that could impact the sustenance of the industry. So I am pleased to introduce to you our keynote speaker today. Yi Yang Qian, President and Group Chief Executive Officer, MISC Group, will be giving us a speech on making the future possible. Mr. Yi, please.
Mr. Ong Ye Kung, Minister for Transport, Singapore. Mr. Chee Hong Tat, Senior Minister of State for Transport and Foreign Affairs. Mr. Loh Ngai Seng, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Transport. Mr. Nam Chiang Ming, Chairman, Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore. Ms. Kwa Lei Hun, Chief Executive, Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore. Distinguished guests, participants, my friends, colleagues, and peers of the global maritime industry. I wish all of you a very good day. I hope we are all keeping well and staying safe as we unite to fight and defeat this common global enemy called COVID-19. Let me first express my great regret of not being able to be present physically with all of you today. I would have gladly braved all the tests and quarantines so that I could attend this session. Unfortunately, as MIC is due to hold its shareholders' annual general meeting just 2 days after today, the preparation for this event does not provide me with enough flexibility in my time for travel between Singapore and Malaysia. So please allow me to extend my apologies again for not being able to be there in person. As I look through the past list of distinguished keynote speakers for the Maritime Lecture Series for the Singapore Maritime Week, I would like to express a big thank you to the Singapore Maritime and Port Authority for giving me this honor and privilege to share my thoughts on the shifting paradigms and new frontiers brought about by the opportunities and challenges arising from the global energy transition, and not the least, the great digital revolution that is sweeping the world and impacting our day-to-day lives. I did ask myself, what could I say or contribute to the topic of the global energy transition, specifically decarbonization or the digital revolution? These two topics are certainly not new to all of us. What can I offer as perspective which has not been said or discussed? I decided to put the sciences, the technical discourses, and engineering debates aside. I've also decided that I will not lecture about what the global maritime industry needs to do to deal with these twin challenges. But rather, I have decided to focus on sharing my beliefs, principles, and motivation behind the various actions and commitments that I have taken together with the MIC group of companies on the issue of decarbonization and the great digital revolution. I'm a big believer that as a leader, one should use his or her professional and industrial capacity and influence to contribute back to the industry in one form or another. Granted, as leaders, we have our respective fiduciary responsibility and economic stewardship towards the financial well-being of the enterprises and organizations that we helm. Above and beyond bottom line and profit objectives, I do sincerely believe I should do my part in contributing back to the industry in whatever form possible. Now, decarbonization is without doubt one of the greatest risks that our industry has ever faced in its history. How does one even begin to deal with a risk that has no immediate or ready-made answer or solution. How does one cope with a risk whereby the financial consequence of our chosen course of action is difficult to be quantified? As part and parcel of our day-to-day responsibilities of running our respective organizations, we are trained to take calculated risks in making our investment and business choices and decisions. The key word here is calculated. Under normal circumstances, we are able to define the risks and put a price tag to them, and therefore make a calculated and informed decision. But in dealing with decarbonization, there are so many unknown factors without immediate answers. Now, I do take full cognizance of all these unknowns. However, given my belief that the MIC group of companies has sufficient financial resilience, the ability to absorb any negative financial consequences of the risks to be taken, I decided it was worth to risk it. Better to have tried but failed than not trying at all. So, our first risky act was to invest in LNG dual fuel FMX tankers way back in 2017 via our subsidiary AET. While LNG dual fuel vessels may be widely accepted today, it was considered a high-risk bet a few years ago. An unproven, commercially viable solutions towards a cleaner source of fuel for vessels. There was also a raging debate about methane slip and its global warming potential of almost 25 times more than carbon dioxide. The debate is still intense today. There were also major questions on accessibility and the supply of LNG as bunker to vessels. Infrastructure to support the supply of LNG as bunker was sorely lacking at that point. There were many unknowns. But please do not get me wrong. It was not a reckless abandonment of risk assessment on my part when we took the plunge into investing into these assets. We knew the risks we were taking. We knew that if our attempt failed, the vessel will be traded using just conventional fuel source. Our financial loss would have been the additional cost of having a dual fuel propulsion system that may be redundant. But we believe and hope that some charterers, clients, will be encouraged by our attempt to explore a cleaner fuel source and therefore would support the initiative. Thankfully, customers did step forth to charter the vessels. We also believe that LNG producers will be incentivized to see the maritime industry adopting LNG as an alternative, cleaner fuel, source of fuel. Given the abundance of LNG, we hope they will help supply the LNG to the industry. And thankfully, they did. Since then, we've gone on to build LNG dual fuel dynamic positioning shuttle tankers and VLCCs. Now, since 2017, the world has made progress in the space of LNG as source of fuel for vessels. Close to 15 to 16% of vessel new buildings today, excluding LNG carriers, are going to be powered by LNG, according to a report I read recently. While the world has not fully solved the issue of methane slip and developed sufficient LNG bunkering infrastructure worldwide to facilitate greater adoption of the fuel, the problems are being cut down in size with every step of progress we make. Look at Singapore as a prime example. It is today one of the leading LNG bunkering hubs in the world and still growing. A perfect example of the progress we have made over the past 4 to 5 years. What mattered to me is that we take the first step. I am not in any way brushing aside the enormity of the challenges and problems to be solved along the way. But I believe not trying to do something is a greater sin than trying and failing. It is when we fail, we learn, and what does not break us will only make us stronger. It is in trying that we find the answers. There is a famous African proverb, and it goes like this: not everyone who chased the zebra caught it, but he who caught it chased it. I believe this proverb says it all. If we do not try, we will never know. And only those who try will see success. The key to solving the challenge of decarbonization is to break the problem, the large problem, down into small chunks, to solve a bigger problem in small parts. Smaller parts that we can afford to risk and stomach the risk of failure. Certainly, this was the approach that we took when we first invested in the LNG dual-fuel Aframax tankers in 2017, when many questions and concerns at that time remain unanswered. As much as I believe I should do my part wherever and whenever I can, I am mindful that I can do much more if I can find partners who have the same aspirations, beliefs, and motivations. Collaborate to accelerate. That was the mantra. That was my mantra. We can do so much more if we join forces together. And this is how we gave birth to the Castor Initiative. The Castor Initiative is a project comprising 6 partners who want to bring a zero-carbon fueled vessel to the industry. And we chose ammonia as a fuel. And I'm super proud that the Singapore Maritime and Port Authority is one of these 6 partners. Now, how did this idea start? Well, actually, over a cup of coffee between 2 partners, sometime in late November 2018, we shared the desire to do something for the industry, to try something. Alone, we can do very little. Together, we might just be able to make something happen. A few months later, a 3rd partner appeared. And a few more months later, the 4th partner joined. And eventually, the 5th and the 6th partner. Today, the 6 partners represent the necessary complete ecosystem of subject matter experts and industry influencers that I truly believe will help make an ammonia-fueled vessel a reality. Together, we complement and supplement each other. Together, we can take failures and setbacks along the way and soldier on. And yes, when the time comes, we, MIC, we will put our money where our mouth is, and we will invest in that ammonia-fueled vessel. Similar to how we solve the challenges of supplying LNG as bunker to the global fleet, we will solve the issues around using ammonia as fuel in parts and in small chunks. Bit by bit, we will remove every roadblock along the way. I'm actually very glad and always very heartened to read and see so many more of such global partnerships and collaboration being formed as we speak. I do not see any of these partnerships and collaborations as competition. No, far from it. I'm a big advocate of multiple and different pathways towards decarbonization. There is no one single silver bullet. There's no such thing. We will need multiple pathways, multiple options, different horses for different causes. There's no right or wrong pathways as long as they work and it brings us closer to a net zero carbon future. Now, it is easy in our journey towards decarbonization and the embracing of the digital revolution in our industry to focus on the assets, the systems, and processes. It is so easy to forget one important element, the human element. By this, I mean our seafarers and the workforce that support the entire global maritime logistics chain. I am a very big supporter of our seafarers. I strongly believe they are our license to exist as ship owners and ship operators. They are our true frontliners, our ambassadors. Without them, we don't have a business to run. As the architecture of the vessels changes with the progress towards decarbonization and the sweeping changes of the digital revolution, I happen to believe that we are not doing enough to reskill and retool our seafarers to ensure that they are equipped and trained for the transitions to come. The education of new cadets must fundamentally be reviewed to ensure that they are prepared correctly with applicable skill sets and competencies for the future of shipping. Continuous education for our existing seafarers will keep them abreast with the latest asset design, operations, and technologies on board. Let me state upfront my concern with the displacement risk of seafarers with the adoption of more automation and AI-driven systems on board that reduces the possible need for the present complement on board. I have no doubt that the rapid adoption of digital and AI-based technologies on board will make our vessels safer and more cost-efficient to run. But nevertheless, we need to visualize an outcome whereby man and machine will coexist in harmony. We cannot leave the rebalancing of manpower requirement to chance or to random outcome because of the digital revolution. I believe the industry needs to start focusing on revamping the training and education of our seafarers to better prepare them for the tasks of decarbonization and the provision of digital systems into their day-to-day lives. MIC runs a leading maritime academy in Malaysia. True to what I'm preaching, we will be investing in the revamping of the academy to ensure that we put our money where our mouth is by taking a fresh take on how we educate our seafarers for the future and how we can reskill and retool them. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the issues that are very dear to my heart, and they feature greatly in my day-to-day conversations and decisions. They serve as my own guiding principles and moral compass as I try to navigate the decarbonization and the great digital revolution. My first belief, I will rather try and fail and try again until I succeed. It is far better than not trying at all. My second belief, if we collaborate, we can accelerate. I believe we can achieve even greater success. My third belief, to not forget the socio-economic welfare of our global seafaring community as progress towards decarbonization and the great digital revolution. Ultimately, our journey towards decarbonization and being digital savvy is not a race against each other. we should not look at it as a race against one another. It is a race against Mother Nature, whose clock is ticking on all matters to do with climate change. It is a race to adopt technology as a friend, not as a foe or disruptor. It is not about whether it is me or you or who crosses the line first in this journey. We all need to help each other to cross the line. We need to help everyone to cross the line together. The more of us try, and the more of us try together, the closer we will get to succeeding in this great decarbonization and digitalization journey. And in doing so, I am very confident we will define and engineer a sustainable future together for the global maritime industry. Thank you for your attention and for this privilege to address all of you. Keep well and stay safe.
Thank you, Mr. Yee, for that insightful sharing. Next up, we have a fireside chat as well as a panel discussion. So please welcome Mr. Taimur Nabili, Chief Executive Officer and Publisher at Tech for Impact Asia. Mr. Nabili will take us through a 10-minute fireside chat with Mr. Yee, followed by a panel discussion with experts in the various industries thereafter. Please welcome Mr. Taimur Nabili.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The stage is all yours.
And good afternoon, everyone. What an incredible pleasure it is to be staring at a sea of faces rather than a little camera. Welcome to this amazing event, marking the new normal for all of us, I hope. As you've been told, we're breaking out now into a two-stage conversation. Firstly, in a moment, I'll be joining Mr. Yee once again, just to pick up on a few of the points that he made, and then we'll invite a panel onto the stage to expand the conversation a little bit further and talk about some of the issues that have been raised by the Minister, by Mr. Yee, and by you. You hopefully will participate in what we're doing today. You've already been told, I think, about the question and answer app. If you haven't, please look on your table. There is a little card there. You can scan the QR code and you can participate in the poll that we'll be running very shortly and have questions for our panel to engage in. So please do join in the conversation. The more input, the better, because as Mr. Yee said there, it's all about collaboration. Mr. Yee, welcome back. Thank you for staying around and chatting with us.
Hi, Taimur.
Pleasure to see you. Let's just pick up on a couple of themes that you touched on there in your short chat before we get to the big panel moderation. I want to talk first about the fuel issue. Now, 3 or 4 years ago when I first interacted with the MPA here in Singapore, the agenda was actually very similar. We were talking then about sulfur and the challenge of decarbonization. We were talking about digitalization, more specifically about blockchain in that context. And here we are, and we've made a lot of progress on those issues since then. One of them being, as you said, the LNG in the ships attention that you guys have paid. But tell me a little bit more about where you see that journey going, because you've also created Castor and you're looking at ammonia. Why did you choose ammonia as the fuel of the future, and how quickly do you think that will be something that can take over from your LNG fleet?
Well, the goal of the Castor initiative is hopefully by 2024, 2025, it is possible to build and operate an ammonia fuel vessel by then. That is obviously the longer term vision whereby we can access a zero carbon fuel for vessels. But as you all know, in the short term, as the Minister has said as well, the short term transitional fuel is LNG. So our strategy is to look at what is immediately available, and then through the Castor initiative, what's going to be the solution all the way towards 2050. And through the Castor initiative with the different partners, we will solve the issue about the right standards. We'll solve the issue about building the ship. We'll solve the issue about how we could handle ammonia safely. As you know, ammonia is toxic. And at the same time, have a ship owner like ourselves own and operate the ship to demonstrate that it is possible to run an ammonia fuel vessel. That's the first part. The second part then obviously is to try and promote a wider technical application of the technology. Castle initiative is focused on building a new ship. So if it works, you can try and then maybe even, if it's possible, to even retrofit vessels using ammonia. So that's the plan, and hopefully from all the way from 2030 to 2050, we can fulfill IMO's aspirations.
I'm still interested in knowing why, though. The idea, because a few years ago we were talking mostly about hydrogen, and a lot of people are still very, very positive on hydrogen. Do you think hydrogen is not the fuel of the future for the maritime industry in particular?
Hydrogen as an overall fuel source, yes. I think the sustainable source of fuel for the future, for a green fuel, for a green future, is ammonia, or shall I say, derivatives of ammonia. But if you look at the science behind ammonia as the source of fuel, is all down to, shall I say, the art of, or the simple art of electrolysis, and that is powered by electricity, right? And I think the world has solved the technology behind the ability to generate electricity on a renewable basis. Solar, wind, is an issue of getting it to a level of cost production which is cheap enough. And I think that would then feed into the next era, which is the production of ammonia-based, sort of hydrogen-based fuel, which is also green and hopefully also feasible and economically acceptable to everybody in the industry.
You touched on collaboration. Castor is a collaborative project, and you spoke quite eloquently about your belief in the need for people to act together. But there is this old phrase that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And you mentioned it in your speech. We're in a crisis. We're in an emergency now. We need to move fast, but we also need collaboration. Just tell me how you reconcile those two competing factors.
That happened to be also an African problem as well. Now, I think we need to run long enough, but at the same time at the right pace. So the journey towards decarbonization, looking for that zero carbon fuel, will take time. I think all of us would love to be able to do it a lot faster, but like I said, there are a lot of questions unanswered. We need to try to break them down bit by bit. But just waiting and doing nothing and just waiting for that zero carbon fuel to come around in the next 10 to 15 years is again not a good thing. Hence why we're just looking at what we can do right now today, which is LNG, right? While we try to tackle the longer term permanent solution, we have at our disposal short to medium-term solutions, transitional pathways, right? Even the day comes when zero carbon fuels are available to the industry, I believe LNG will still have a role to play. At a time, in combination with other solutions, it could be a total package. So again, I go back to the point we need multiple pathways towards a zero carbon future.
You also spoke about the challenge in the future of manpower or people power as the industry goes forward. And you spoke about your academy and the need for accommodating the changes ahead. Can you just give us a brief analysis of what the academy will be teaching, and what do you think are the key steps in the head in managing that transition in the talent change?
Well, obviously at the base, we need to fulfill the technical requirement, right, for seafarers on board the vessels. That remains unchanged. But I think it is where we teach future-looking elements, whereby from what the industry is doing when it comes to the multiple fuel sources, the systems and technology that goes onto the vessel, and as more vessels adopt digital solutions on board, more AI-powered solutions on board, how do we bring some of these future-looking subjects into the teaching so that they are trained to deal with things today, technically, but they've got a mindset to adopt when the changes come. So I think it's a bit of a sort of a moving part, so to speak. We need to deal with what we need today, but at the same time, prepare the seafarers for what's to come in the next 10 to 20 years.
Okay, and quickly, just before we get to the panel, one of the issues we want to talk about in the panel is the issue of transition in the supply chain. And given what we've seen in the Suez Canal, just give us a quick analysis of the logistics and supply chain considerations that you're looking at now after those events, not just COVID, but Suez Canal.
Now, that's a difficult topic because it's about who would have imagined, right, after dealing with COVID-19 in 2020, that you deal with such an event which basically choked up the entire global supply chain. And I think the issue here is the risk. I don't think we can avoid risk. It's a question of how do we deal with the risk when something happens. And I think this is where the great digital revolution, and we had this thing, being data-driven, to have information at your fingertip, to be able to make decisions quickly. I think the digital revolution would enable us to make faster decisions, to be able to navigate all the new risks that will come our way. There's no way we could live in a risk-free world, but we can definitely manage risk a lot better, a lot faster.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for that brief chat and for your presentation. Do stay with us, because we're going to continue the conversation with a few more participants. So stand by for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, as we'll have a panel discussion now, allow me to introduce our esteemed panel. One by one, if they would please join me here on the stage. Vandita Pant is the Chief Commercial Officer for BHP. Simon Quick is the President of the Association of Singapore Marine Industries and the Vice President and Head of Research and Development at Semcorp Marine Limited. Simon, please join us. And Pang Mei is Head of Asia Pacific, Global Practice Lead for Supply Chain and Analytics Practice at DHL Consulting. Please give them a warm welcome. Vandita, please. Vandita, if you would sit immediately to my left, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much. And while they are composing themselves and warming themselves up, folks, let's ask you guys to join in too, because as I said, we would like you to participate and engage with our panel as well. And let's kick it all off with a short poll. I'm going to ask you a question before I begin to engage the panel. We're going to have a little poll, and I hope you're all logged in to the system here so that you can give us your thoughts on this. The first question is, what is the biggest challenge facing the maritime community today? You have some options. Is it demand spikes? Is it a crew change crisis? Is it decarbonization, digitalization, or fuel emissions regulations? What do you see as being the biggest challenge facing the community? Take your time for a couple of seconds to answer that, and we'll bring the panel in to talk about that as well. Folks, I'd like to hear your views on that too. Let's just see if you chime with what the audience has to say, and we'll have the results up in just a couple of minutes. So far, it seems as if there is a marginal consensus at the moment, but it's running neck and neck. Vandita, what would you put as being the most important challenge or the most crucial challenge facing the industry?
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Taimur, I would say, let me pick up decarbonization as a theme, because I think it's not just a challenge for today, it's the challenge of our age going forward. And this is something which, as an industry, we have to tackle. And it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity to really step change the way the industry is looked at, perceived, how proactive we can be, and be part of the journey that the humanity has to go through. So let's take our accountability in the challenge. Let's assume that we need to do it as an ecosystem. We heard a lot about it, and I think this is one thing which has to happen as an industry. No single player, no single part of the value chain can do it. And thirdly, if we meet the expectations, it does propel us into what will continue to be lifeblood of the world's economic growth, which is maritime industry. And in BHP, as a customer, if I can say it, of the maritime industry, as a big consumer, we are very focused on it. What is very clear is there is no silver bullet and there's no single answer.
Right.
And hence, a portfolio approach is what we'll have to do with the courageous
But
steps.
is there a single challenge? Can we bring up the results of that poll there on the screen and see what the audience think about the major challenge ahead? There we go. It is decarbonization. Mm-hmm. Initially, it looked like it was going to be crew change crisis, but decarbonization ahead, well ahead of digitalization and fuel emissions regulations, which perhaps would have been a bigger issue a few years ago. Mei, let me ask you, I mean, how do you respond to that? Just a quick word on that before we get into the substance.
I think there are a lot of challenges faced from a supply chain standpoint where it is an extremely fragmented sector, many changes of hands along one supply chain. That's also today impacted by many technological changes. Digitalization is changing the way we work, and so on and so forth. So there are many huge challenges that the industry faces. However, I would say that the most important challenge is the challenge of ensuring we become more and more sustainable in the way we practice. So sustainability, I would say, is the most important one that is underlying all the different challenges that the sector is facing in general.
The Minister started off this morning talking about 4 major challenges: resilience, decarbonization, digitalization, and the talent pool. Decarbonization seems to be the industry theme at the moment. Simon, you're involved, obviously, in this question as well. Let's talk about it from your perspective. How is SEMBcorp in particular, let's begin with that hat that you wear. How is SEMBcorp dealing with that broader decarbonization question?
Okay, for the marine industry, the challenge of decarbonization is actually part of the larger challenge of energy transition. So we have to address both the maritime decarbonization as well as the energy, which means the utility scale of power generation. In this aspect, the industry are looking at offshore wind as one possible solution. So for SEMBcorp Marines, we look at, for the maritime decarbonizations, LNG will be one key focus. We will build full value chain solutions. We deliver vessels like, say, for example, gas fuel vessel, the world's largest heavy lift cranes that uses LNG as a primary fuel. And currently, we are also building another part of the value chain solution, which is the LNG bunkering vessel, a 12,000 meter cube, the LNG bunkering vessel. And then we also, for our own operation, to keep it green, we are replacing our diesel tugs with the LNG fuel tugs. So these are the few things we do from the LNG angle. For electrification, there is also another dimension, especially relevance for the hovercraft. This is also one area that we are focusing a lot. We are currently building 3 electrified ferry in our yard for our customers. We are also partnering a few others clients to develop electrification solutions. Later this week, we are going to announce an MOU partnering our client, our customers, to develop hydrogen fuel cell test bed to evaluate how the hydrogen fuel cell is going to help us to fully decarbonize the maritime fuel. Thank you.
Yang Shen, I'll come to you in a minute, but we've had a chat already, so let me put the same question, if I could, to Vandita before we get to you. BHP has become very involved in the LNG conversation. Is that how you see the future? Tell me about what your long-term plans are for reducing emissions and for tackling this issue.
Sure. So, as a user of vessels, as in we are among the world's largest dry bulk charterers, and we take the accountability for emission reduction in our footprint in the whole value chain quite seriously. So we accept it, It's a higher expectation, and there's value in it if we can get our products in a sustainable way to our customers. So on LNG, you may know, Timur, that in September we announced the world's first charter award for Newcastle Maxes, which were LNG fueled, which will get delivery in next year. Very proud that our team based here in Singapore managed the whole process, and it was awarded to EPS, which is a firm based here as well. However, I do think that LNG is one part of the solution, and we have led the industry there, and very pleased that since then actually quite a few of our peers have done that, which is exactly the point. Someone needs to start to take the first step, and then the whole ecosystem accelerates. But equally, just last week we have announced that we have had the first ocean-going vessel on marine biofuel trial happening with bunkering in Singapore that we just announced with Oldendorff and Good Fuel. So what I'm trying to say is there is a portfolio of solutions on decarbonization across different horizons, some short-term, some long-term, and we will try everything and start the agitation, if you will, in terms of seeing what works and how do we measure it. And next would be something that we will want to do with the green ammonia and hydrogen as well. So not a single bullet, but doing all those things and looking at really outcome-based results. Do we get what we said we did through these pilots?
Right. May, you wanted to say?
Yeah, it's quite interesting to hear so much talk about LNG today because a few months back, our CEO announced a whole suite of different initiatives for us to achieve our carbon neutral objective. So as DHL, we've committed to get to a net zero carbon emission by 2050. And as an interim target, we have set aside a lot of investments to evaluate and consider the different options available. So we have opted for marine, the biofuel, for an experiment. As earlier said, it's important to have a basket and portfolio of different initiatives. We've opted for that. But more importantly, I think it's for us, as we don't have the carriers ourselves, we work with our supplier carriers. And one of the important things that we have done is to have a Go Green supplier evaluation program where we incentivize our most important, suppliers who have the prioritize green initiatives into the consideration when we pick our supplier partners.
There's a question we've had from the floor. Thank you for participating already. We've got a number of questions in our app already, which I'll start addressing as we go forward. I want to put this one particularly because it refers to what we're talking about. And Yang Chen, I'll put this to you. Multiple fuel solutions sound good, but how do you see we can cope with the necessary following bunker logistical networks worldwide? This from an anonymous contributor. You don't have to put your names in, but could you, Yang Chen, if you'd address that one?
Good question. And I think we can build off the infrastructure development of LNG as bunkering. And as we move towards, let's say, ammonia as an alternative fuel, we can build off that. And I think this is where, if I could sort of stress the importance of parties like the Singapore Maritime Port Authority, whereby I think they wrote a fantastic process and overall system how to handle LNG as bunkers safely. And I believe this has been shared with all the big ports around the world. I think learning off the same process as well, we could also apply that to ammonia and hopefully maybe building off some of the infrastructure that's been developed for LNG, we can then springboard into the other fuel sources as well. It's about, again, taking baby steps. You never know, some of the infrastructure that we've developed for LNG may be also useful as well for the other new fuels that will come along the way.
Thank you very much. Simon, let's change the subject a little bit and talk a bit about disruption, and not digital disruption for the moment, but just the practical disruption that COVID has caused us. Talk a little bit about how you see what has happened here and how we can manage that in the context of going forward?
For our industry, I'm quite pleased that the resumption of operation came quite quickly, within 2 months after the immediate lockdown, together with the port operation. The industry plus growth cycle has built resilience in the industry, both in terms of the renewed infrastructure, the talent pool, and also the healthy ecosystem of enterprises. Enable us to recover very quickly. Our immediate priority then was to resume the continuity of the yard operation, protect our employee, our customers, and our business partners, so as to be able to protect their ship asset, keep the goods going, and also people on board safe and healthy. So what we did was, both as an organization as industry, is that we work with government agencies for targeted helps that come very useful to preserve our capability during these difficult times. And then also we work with our logistic partners to ensure the supply chain are not disrupted so that the yard can continue to operate, to be able to serve our customers. Internally, for us, we also have to make sure that we can avoid a second disruption. So whatever we do in the organization, we make use of technology to make sure that we are safe. So we even use things like the smart leaf to segregate teams. We use smart mobile apps to make monitoring of temperature very efficient. Also, to make sure that our operations are efficient, we set up our own swap center within the organization so that the regular swapping will not cause productivity loss. So these are things that we do both as an industry and as organizations to keep ourselves really effective and operational during this COVID.
Maybe the other really disruptive thing that's happened this year, of course, is the Suez Canal event. How did DHL respond to that, and how did you engage with partners to try and get around those issues and maybe plan for the kind of resilience that we need going forward?
I think earlier Mr. Yi talked about the fact that we will never be able to prevent these incidents. So I think companies' supply chains need to be ready to react and adapt. And one key lever to enable that is the visibility and transparency of what's going on the ground. The closer on the ground information that you have, the faster it is, will be the winner in the market and will be the one who is having the competitive advantage to react. Even if it's an hour earlier, the ability to switch mode or the ability to replenish, the ability to make changes to your supply chain to react to that incident is really key to have that continuity in your supply chain. One example of such an enabler is a platform that we developed already 10 years ago where, if you recall, there were lots of black swans events that's happening around the world, whether it's tsunamis or the ash in Europe. And at that time, our customers came to us and said, wouldn't it be great if we are able to understand what's happening on the ground and to be able to react. We developed a platform that allows for exactly that to be visible. So a platform that provides our customers the visibility of incidents happening across the globe, the size of the impact on their supply chain, overlaying with their supply chain, they were able to then to make those necessary adjustments to their supply chain. And today, 10 years on, we are talking about, can we even automate those reactions? Can we even measure the exact impact of those reactions? So a whole series of opportunities is really embedded in the ability using digital solutions to react.
Yi Yang Chen, we've had an interesting comment here from Ronnie Wag, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, from Heron Advisory. And he says, World Bank yesterday asked the world's governments to stop investing in LNG fuel for shipping and to focus on ammonia or hydrogen. What's your take on that?
I think we could look at why parties against LNG as a fuel. And I think it all boils down to the fact that its global warming potential is 25 times worse than carbon dioxide, the very greenhouse gas we're trying to eliminate in this whole process as you try to decarb. The key to solving this is how do you deal with the methane slip? I think everyone knows the problem. There's a lot of research going into that. If you can deal with the methane slip problem and minimize it, combined with a few other technical solutions, we can make LNG as low, as carbon-free as possible compared to the other alternative fuels. Bottom line, it has to be a combination of the right technical solution, but at the same time, we need a fuel source that is also financially feasible, that can be adopted industry-wide by the global maritime industry.
Panel, you've all mentioned LNG to a certain extent. What's your response to that question?
Yeah, I think we should not underestimate the amount of innovation yet to happen on these challenges to be solved. So I would say from well to tank kind of upstream emissions, if you will, there's a whole consideration around where the location of LNG production is, what process is used, which can really quantify what that sort of well to tank emission is. On downstream, from tank to propulsion, of course, there are different ways as well to do that. And in fact, the commissioning that we have done for LNG vessels, we have used the technology which is high pressure technology in engines, which reduces the methane slip, and something that we'll be measuring during the pilot over next few years. Equally, the emission factor standardization, as we know, can be, still is needed. So the kind of emission factor that we are quantifying the emissions with is very conservative.
But how problematic is it that you have so many different signals coming from different global institutions and bodies? Where do you look to for decision-making capacity and leadership?
I think leadership is action, not talk. I really think that if we sit here for a very long time waiting for a perfect solution to come, this industry, all of us being included in that, will be seen to be laggards in what is an unstoppable directional view of sustainability in our supply chain. And expectations are increasing. So what I would say to that is, let's try all different things. And there are things which are scalable and commercial today. Let's try those and really monitor, hold ourselves accountable for the real footprint of emissions so that we know which considerations are more sensitive to give the right answer. Equally, experiment, as I said. Yeah. Biofuel, we've just done 80-90% on the face of it, emissions can be reduced. Let's prove that that can be done.
Okay.
Equally, not give up on things which are still emerging.
Simon, it's a time of enormous uncertainty, isn't it? I mean, all sorts of different messages and signals coming. How are you dealing with that uncertainty? I mean, submarine's strategy and approach to risk and that kind of thing must be now evolving alongside the landscape. Tell me how you're approaching this stuff.
Yeah, we believe that like most of you believe the LNG is the interim fuel here to stay for a while more. It is economical, it is safe, and the logistic chain has well developed, like what Mr. Yi has shared. More than 10 years ago, we have gone through all those difficult process to experiment, test, set up. There's a lot of work in it. To develop the next fuel, we'll have to go through the same journey once more. And at this moment, the hydrogen is still a while more to go. So we're not saying that we don't do anything for the future fuel. LNG will continue to be the solution for now. Immediately, what we have to do is to see how, for those assets using LNG to continue its future life, including the use of, say, carbon capture technology. That's one area that we can develop. For the utility plant, this kind of redevelopment has restarted to decarbonize LNG as a fuel. Capture the carbon dioxide to inject into depleted oil fuel Sembcorp Marine participated in one such test bedding project in Europe at the moment. Now, hydrogen presents a promise for zero carbon future. It is early day. Technological problem can be overcome, but the truth is ultimately whether do we have sufficient renewable energy to generate the hydrogen, the green and the blue hydrogen. So it takes time for the renewable to fully develop to be able to generate the hydrogen. But again, we are not saying that we should wait. We should, in fact, start now to look at the future fuel. Sembcorp Marine is now evolving in a number of hydrogen fuel cell projects in Europe. Later this week, as I had mentioned earlier on, we are going to make an announcement for a local test bed for this technology as a showcase for the local community here to evaluate the feasibility of the hydrogen.
KPMG came out last year with a CEO survey in Singapore in which they said supply chain risk was the greatest threat that they have seen, that they consider to be in the future. Tell us a little bit about how you're looking at supply chain issues and whether you think it is considerable.
Being part of the logistics industry, supply chain is something that we do put a lot of emphasis to make sure that our customers get right. So it's always been a very important pillar for companies' continuity. I think in the last 12 months or so, supply chain has been brought up to the highest level of an organizational board-level discussion. The ability to react to very big changes in demand and supply influences the shutdowns across the globe, in the manufacturing side of things, and also from the demand side of things. So supply chain has become a very high visible topic for many companies. There's a lot of work that has been that has gone into enabling companies to have a much more resilient supply chain of the future, from anything like re-looking at a company's network and infrastructure to allow for that resiliency to be flexed, multi-hub type solutions, having the ability to switch modes of transportation when needed. For example, in the event of Suez Canal, perhaps a company can consider switching to air freight at an instance, or even considering road and rail as an alternative option to move their products and services. So there has been a whole series, and again, coming back to the whole idea of having that connected ecosystem supported by digital platforms is key to addressing some of these supply chain risks that companies face today.
Let's get to a couple more questions from the floor about the human capital element of the conversation. We've had a couple of questions about how can we tackle this issue, but there's one specific one from Tom Tay, who says, how can the maritime industry, he says in Singapore, but I think this applies to Malaysia as well, Yang Chen, and perhaps the rest of the industry too. How can the maritime industry be more open to absorb professionals from other fields and sectors? Will conversion certification be recognized? That's an interesting angle on it. What do you think?
Well, wouldn't it be great if the captain on board, the vessel, could also fly a plane as well? I think that would be the ultimate. But I think in trying to be creative and try to engineer the future for ourselves, I think our industry should be open and welcoming to professionals from other industries. So let me give you an example. I believe there were many studies and sort of parties coming together to look at the safety standards of the global aviation industry, where we learn from the best in terms of safety standards in the aviation industry, and we sort of imported quite a bit of that into the global maritime industry. I think that's an example of where we should be open, where a different industry vertical has learned something in this the sort of decarb journey. By all means, I would welcome the transfer of somebody's knowledge to human capital across to also help expedite our own journey as well.
Anita.
Yeah, maybe just adding to what Mr. Yee said, I think we also need to imagine what does the human capital in the maritime in future looks like. All the problems that we are talking about, be it decarbonization, digitization, or digitalization, means there is an intersectional way in which capability needs to be built. A very different view of problem solvers need to come to the industry, because the kind of problems that we are dealing with are a huge opportunity for people with the deep skills in their expertise, and we need that. And I think positioning the industry as an industry which is absolutely lifeblood of the world's economy, but equally has some big, chunky problems and challenges to solve, means that we can get fresh blood, which is needed to enable us to overcome the new things. So I would say intersectional expertise is another dimension to really go after and attract new talent.
All right, folks, we've got about 6 minutes left. So I'd like to give you the opportunity to consider a final comment. Let's think about looking forward. Let's think about what are your fondest hopes for the change and the outcome of the processes that we've all been talking about. And also mention anything that we haven't touched on that you think we should have done. While you're thinking about that, I'm going to turn to the audience on the floor and give you one more poll question in a similar vein. Please grab your devices and consider 2021 will be the year of, and these are your options. Will it be the year of transformation, of resilience, of action, of seafarers, or of new challenges and opportunities? Where are we going in 2021 and, of course, beyond? Because I think 2021 will prove to be a year of pivot, if I can use that much overused term, and see where we go with that. So while the audience are considering that, let me turn back to our panel. And Mei, some final closing comments on where you think 2021 is going to take us and beyond.
Yeah, I used to run the Innovation Center for DHL in Asia Pacific. And looking back, right, this opportunity that COVID has given us is this urgent sense of urgencies that many companies are now willing to take a chance to perhaps make a mistake. And in the innovation world, we never talk about mistakes. We just talk about tons and tons of opportunities to experiment. And this is a great opportunity to take smaller problem statements, test them, and explore ways using the resources around you, your talent pool, to work with universities, to create mini projects, to embark on the same journey that the entire industry is hoping to tackle. If I were to just, leave one idea, is to just come up with a project that you could handle at an individual entity level and expand on that, just as how earlier Mr. Yee was talking about how progressively he found different partners to initiate his program that is now full-fledged running.
Fantastic, thank you for that. Let's have a quick check-in on the poll. What were our results on what the audience thinks of 2021 and the world beyond? Transformation, that's what it's all about. That's where we're going. I hope you're all ready. Simon, are you ready? Your closing comments, please.
Yeah, earlier on I've shared views on transformation, both as a company and industry, so I will switch the topic a little. I would rather touch on the number 3 item, which is action. For the maritime industry to tackle the decarbonization and reaching the IMO 2050 goal, we must action now. We must accelerate, be it the fuel as LNG, or harbor electrification, or a future fuel. We must accelerate. I'll just give you an example of a small, simple mathematics about asset renewal. If global fleet, ocean-going fleet is about 60,000, and each of the asset, if new, is 30 years, it will take exactly about that 30 years to replace the entire fleet, which means each year you have to build 2,000 decarbonized vessels from today. That is a challenge.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I think there's urgency, and together with the partners and stakeholders within the industry, I think let us start today and work towards the global decarbonization target of 2050. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Pandita.
Yeah, I would agree. Transformation and backed by action. And the only thing I would add is decarbonization, yes, digitization, yes, and dialogue as the third D, because the only thing that we can bank on is if all of us across the value chain do our part and have aligned way of testing things out. So I would reach out through this forum to say we as an industry to come together, and that's the only way we'll solve different options to solving the problems. So yes, let's do a transformative step, but with action so that we can keep learning and keep going on the delivery part.
Fantastic, thank you. And we'll end the session this afternoon where we began with Mr. Yi Yang Chen. Your closing thoughts, please.
Well, 2021 will be a year of transformation, but I would tag one of the other pole as well. I think is resilience. I think the minister talked about that. We didn't quite touch about it. And I think we cannot run away from the economic reality of resilience and survival because of the economic fallout from COVID-19 last year and this year as well. I think in this year in transformation, I think at the very heart of it, we're going to transform and we look at what financial resilience means. I think COVID-19 has tested a lot of our financial resilience model. There are always ways to improve. And that's the short term, financial resilience. Medium term is resilience when it comes to human capital. Long-term resilience is keep ensuring that we remain viable come 2050 when the world demands a zero carbon future.
Thank you very much, sir. It seems very clear that, I mean, we asked you to choose between one of those different categories, but we've talked about most of them, and all of them are in play. There are so many balls up in the air as we go into the end of 2021 and beyond. Clearly, the challenges are enormous, but our panel seems optimistic. I hope you are too. Please show your appreciation for our participants today, folks. Thank you, panel. And thank you for your audience questions and your participation. And we'll move on. Bye-bye.
Thank you to our panel for that insightful discussion. Ms. Vandita Pant, Mr. Simon Quick, Ms. Pang Mei Yi, Mr. Yi Yang Chen, and our moderator, Mr. Timur Nabili. I'd like to now invite on stage to present some tokens of appreciation to our panel. Senior Minister of State for Foreign Affairs and Transport, Chee Hong Tat. SMS Chee, we welcome you on stage, please. These mementos carry a deep and encouraging story. Dagis, a Singapore-based women-owned social enterprise, believes that everyone deserves to live a productive and satisfying life, regardless of any physical or mental challenge, and is born with their own special talents and should have the opportunity to develop and share them with others. Each art piece presented today is unique and crafted with a heartwarming thought. And Mr. Yi, if you can still hear us, I believe your memento is on its way to you. It will be with you very shortly. Everyone, please lift up your mementos for a group photo. Everyone, please give our panelists a warm round of applause. Thank you, SMS Chi. Now this year marks the 11th run of the Singapore International Maritime Awards, as we recognize the enduring support, commitment and confidence that companies have in Singapore as a leading international maritime center. We will now be presenting industry awards to recognize the contributions that fellow maritime companies and individuals have made to the community. Let's have a look at what the Singapore International Maritime Awards are all about.
The International Maritime Awards, or IMA, is a biannual award ceremony to recognize individuals and companies that have made outstanding contributions to Singapore's development as a global hub port and international maritime center. We would like to thank companies who have expanded their footprint or set up businesses in Singapore.
BW Epic Kosan, formerly known as Epic Gas Limited, was set up in 2004. We chose Singapore because Singapore offered a very pro-business and dynamic environment, political and economic stability, highly skilled talent, and Singapore ticked a lot of boxes for us.
Our company has expanded over the years in Singapore through ship owning. Today, our owned fleet size is 50 ships, with about half of them Singapore flagged. We plan to renew our fleet over the next few years through new buildings and acquisitions. On the talent front, the company has supported the Maritime One as well as the tripartite maritime scholarship programs over the years. We believe in grooming sea and shore-based talent for leadership and specialist positions and in support of Singapore's maritime endeavours.
A memorable moment for me and the company would have been in 2018 when Gibson celebrated its 125 years and 10 years in Singapore, with a reception for over 300 colleagues and clients. It was a memorable night, befitting the milestone the company had reached since it formed in 1893. And it was equally fitting that we held it in Singapore, the location of our fastest growing office.
Thank you for being part of the vibrant maritime Singapore ecosystem, and we look forward to working closer with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will be giving out 11 industry awards in recognition of the efforts by companies and individuals who made outstanding contributions to the development of Singapore as a global hub port and international maritime center. And a gentle reminder to refrain from shaking hands or even fist bumps, and please keep your mask on even while you're on stage. Without further ado, may I please now invite on stage back again Senior Minister of State for Transport and Foreign Affairs, Chee Hong Tat, to present the industry awards. SMS Chi, please. We start with the Sustainability Award. The Sustainability Award is given to the company that has contributed significantly to sustainability and decarbonization efforts in the maritime industry. And the award goes to Sembcorp Marine Limited. Sembcorp Marine is an integrated one-stop engineering solution provider for the offshore, marine and energy industries. Sustainability is embedded in Sembcorp Marine Group's business growth strategy, with various green initiatives such as the design and construction of an LNG bunker tanker and 12 LNG hybrid-powered tugs. Receiving the Sustainability Award on behalf of Sembcorp Marine Limited is Simon Quick, Vice President and Head of Resources and Development, Sembcorp Marine, and Secretary of the Sembcorp Marine Sustainability Council. Congratulations, Sembcorp Marine Limited. And thank you, Mr. Simon Quick. The next award is the Singapore Registry of Ships, or SRS Green Ship of the Year Award, which recognizes the outstanding owner of quality green Singapore registered ships. And the award goes to Saga Dawn, which is owned by Saga LNG Shipping Private Limited. New to the SRS, Saga LNG Shipping is a company that focuses on the transportation, storage, regasification and liquefaction of LNG in the mid-size segment. The company registered Saga Dawn under the Singapore flag on 31st August 2019. It uses LNG as an alternative fuel for propulsion and has achieved an EEDI reduction factor of 52%. Receiving the SRS Green Ship of the Year Award on behalf of Saga Dawn is Mr. Olaf Norton, Group Chief Executive Officer, Tomer Ship Management Private Limited. Congratulations, Saga Dawn. And thank you, Mr. Olaf Norton. For the SRS Green Ship of the Year Award, we would also like to present a special mention to Takarawa-san, which is owned by NYK Bulk Ship Asia Private Limited. Congratulations, Takarawa-san, and thank you, Mr. Takeshi Kishi. The next award is the SRS Green Ship Owner of the Year Award. In commemoration of the 25th anniversary of the SRS and 10th anniversary of the Green Ship Program, we are giving out this award to the owner with the largest proportion of ships participating in the program. And the award goes to BW Group. BW Group is a leading global maritime company involved in shipping, floating infrastructure, deep water oil and gas production, and new sustainable technologies. It is a keen supporter of sustainability initiatives and has been an active participant in the Green Ship Program for 8 years. Today, it has the largest proportion of Singapore-registered vessels in the Green Ship Program. Receiving the SRS Green Ship Owner Award on behalf of BW Group is Billy Chu, Executive Vice President, BW Group. Congratulations, BW Group, and thank you, Mr. Billy Chu. The next award is the SRS Ship Owner of the Year Award, presented to the outstanding owner of quality Singapore-registered ships. And the award goes to AET Tankers Private Limited. AET Tankers is one of the world's largest owner and operator of petroleum tankers, employing over 2,700 seafarers and 200 shore staff. In 2020, AET took delivery of 4 eco-friendly, dynamic positioning shuttle tankers, all flagged under the SRS. These vessels received DNV GL's Smart Ship notation, equipped with systems to optimize performance and energy efficiency. Receiving the SRS Ship Owner of the Year Award on behalf of AET Tankers Private Limited is Captain Rajalingam Subramaniam, President and Chief Executive Officer, AET Tankers Private Limited. Congratulations, AET Tankers Private Limited, and thank you, Captain Rajalingam Subramaniam. The next award is the Bunker Award, which recognizes the outstanding bunker supplier or bunker craft operator, demonstrating commitment to quality standards, quantity assurances, and customer satisfaction, in line with the objective of promoting Singapore as the preferred bunkering hub. The award goes to V-Bunkers Tankers Private Limited. V-Bunkers Tankers is part of a group of 18 companies operating in the Singapore bunkering industry since 1992. They built a reputation of being steadfast in carrying out operations with integrity, reliability, and safety. Receiving the Bunker Award on behalf of V-Bunkers Tankers Private Limited, Mr. Michael Wolfgang Müller, President and Chief Executive Officer, Vitol Asia. Congratulations, V-Bunkers Tankers Private Limited. And thank you, Mr. Michael Wolfgang Müller. The next award is the Outstanding Maritime R&D and Technology Award, given to the company or research institution in Singapore that has demonstrated outstanding innovation in the research, development, or test bedding of technology for the maritime industry. And the award goes to Ships Focus Services Private Limited. Ships Focus is a venture studio dedicated to developing innovative solutions for the maritime industry. They work with SMEs to identify pain points and successfully implement solutions to increase their operational efficiency. Receiving the Outstanding Maritime R&D and Technology Award on behalf of Ships Focus Services Private Limited, James Kim, Chief Operating Officer of Ships Focus Services Private Limited. Congratulations, Ships Focus Services Private Limited, and thank you, Mr. James Kim. Our 7th award is the Maritime Service Provider Award, granted to the maritime service provider that has demonstrated exceptional professional performance and contribution to Singapore's maritime industry. And the award goes to Synergy Marine Private Limited. Headquartered in Singapore, Synergy Marine has grown from a small-sized ship manager to a truly international ship management group that employs over 1,000 worldwide and manages around 350 vessels. Today, the group is the world's 6th largest ship manager in terms of number of vessels under full technical management. Receiving the Maritime Service Provider Award on behalf of Synergy Marine Private Limited is Sanjeev Namath, Chief Business Officer, Synergy Marine Group. Congratulations, Synergy Marine Private Limited, and thank you, Mr. Sanjeev Namath. The next award is for excellence in manpower training and development, and is presented to the organization that has contributed to the growth and development of Singapore's maritime manpower by demonstrating their commitment towards supporting employment and training efforts. And the award goes to PSA International Private Limited. PSA International has remained committed to the training and development of its people throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition, PSA supported its employees who were keen to pursue specialist diplomas or master's programs, and provided internships and traineeships under MPA's Global Internship Award and the SG United Traineeship Program. Receiving the Excellence in Manpower Training and Development Award on behalf of PSA International Private Limited, Ong Kim Pong, Regional Chief Executive Officer, Southeast Asia, PSA International Private Limited. Congratulations, PSA International Private Limited, and thank you, Mr. Ong Kim Pong. Next up, the International Maritime Centre Corporate Award, presented to the company that has contributed significantly towards the development of Singapore as an international maritime centre. And the award goes to Eastern Pacific Shipping Private Limited.
Singapore. We've been in business for over 60 years. It's a very rich history. where we've managed to remain at the forefront of the industry. We are on the eve of taking delivery of our new building program of about 50 new buildings in various sectors. These ships use dual fuel and are the greenest and safest of the industry and allow us to offer our clients the best solution available today to lower their emissions.
We also started sometime in 2019 a move into Techstars, which is looking at how technology can change the way we do business in shipping. Biggest advantage of having push for us to do Techstars in Singapore is to bring in these very smart and greener and modern companies into Singapore.
Our workforce is made of 75% local staff and 25% foreigners. We strive to be an employer of choice in the shipping industry across sea and shore. We offer comprehensive upskilling and development training programs that equip our employees to become leaders in their field.
We've been in Singapore over 30 years, and we chose Singapore at that time because we foresaw that Singapore will be the shipping center of the world. It's at the crossroads between the East and the West. It wasn't a wrong decision, and we're very happy to have made that decision.
COVID-19 has fundamentally changed the way we work and operate as a business. And to that extent, the support we received from Singapore during this last 18 months has been tremendous. We've been able to operate efficiently despite the limitation of the virus, keep our ships going without any incidents, and being a crucial part of the global supply chain. We did a global charity event at the end of last year, which I'm personally very proud of. We gathered all our partners, all our staff on board the ships and onshore to together attempt to circumvent the world a distance of over 40,000 kilometers. In the end, we managed to cover 70,000 kilometers, which is almost twice around the world, so give us a challenge for next year.
Receiving the IMC Corporate Award on behalf of Eastern Pacific Shipping Private Limited, Cyril Ducao, Chief Executive Officer, Eastern Pacific Shipping Private Limited. Congratulations, Eastern Pacific Shipping Private Limited, and thank you, Mr. Cyril Ducao. And now the final award of the day, the International Maritime Centre Individual Award, presented to an outstanding individual who has contributed significantly towards the development of Singapore as an international maritime centre. The recipient of the International Maritime Centre Individual Award is Andreas Soman Pao. Mr. Soman Pao, chairman of the BW Group, is a strong advocate and supporter of Maritime Singapore. He champions Singapore's vision to be a global maritime hub by taking on leadership roles in various organizations and committees, such as the chairman of the Singapore Maritime Foundation since 2016. Mr. Soman Pao also chaired the International Maritime Centre 2030 Strategic Review Committee in 2016 and is currently the co-chair of the International Advisory Panel on Maritime Decarbonization to recommend strategies to support global maritime decarbonization goals. Congratulations, Mr. Andreas Soman Pao. May I please invite Mr. Soman Pao back on stage, and SMSG please remain on stage. Joining them, please welcome Mr. Ngiam Chiang Meng, Chairman of MPA, and Chief Executive of MPA, Ms. Kwa Lei Hoon. Due to safe distancing measures, we will be splitting up the Industry Awards group photo taking into 3 batches. I'd like to invite the following winners on stage for the first group photo. Mr. Cyril Ducao, Mr. Ong Kim Pong, Mr. Sanjeev Namath. You may remove your mask for the group photograph. A huge sigh of relief. A round of applause. Please replace your masks. And thank you, Mr. Soman Pao, Mr. Dukal, Mr. Ong, Mr. Namath. You may return to your seats. SMSG, Mr. Nyam, Ms. Kwa, please stay on stage. The second group photo, the following industry award winners, please join us. Mr. Chua Chai Po, Mr. Michael Wolfgang Müller, Captain Rajalingam Subramaniam, Mr. Billy Chu. You may remove your mask for the group photograph. Please give them a warm round of applause. Mask back on, please. Thank you, award winners. Please return to your seats. I'd like to now invite these award winners on stage for the final group photo. Mr. Takeshi Kishi, Mr. Olaf Norton, Mr. Simon Quick. Please join us on stage. You may remove your masks for the group photograph. One more round of applause, please. Masks back on and award recipients. SMSG, Mr. Nyam, Ms. Kwa, please return to your seats. On behalf of the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore, we would like to thank our audience here and virtually. We hope you have enjoyed the day as well as the networking lounge on the platform, and you walk away inspired by the passion and energy and ideas that you experienced today. While this program might be over, the event platform will remain accessible for all until the 25th of April. And as the saying goes, there is no end to learning, but there are many beginnings. My name is Timothy Ngeh. It is my pleasure to have been your host today. Thank you very much and have a lovely afternoon.